World War II remains one of the most significant and impactful events in human history, shaping global politics, economics, and society in profound ways. The war was not only a conflict between nations, but also a clash of ideologies, cultures, and ambitions. We explore the 12 essential stages of World War II, including the complex reasons that precipitated the outbreak of the war. Join us as we embark on this compelling journey through time, navigating the shadowy corridors of power, strategy, and humanity. Prepare to be informed, engaged, and ultimately moved as we unravel the intricate patterns of this historic struggle that shaped our modern world. The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, marked the formal conclusion of World War I, a conflict that engulfed Europe and had far-reaching implications around the globe. As one of the most significant diplomatic agreements of the 20th century, the treaty not only established the terms of peace, but also set the stage for future geopolitical tensions. This comprehensive analysis explores the origins, key provisions, impact, and legacy of the Treaty of Versailles. The origins of the treaty can be traced back to the events leading up to and during World War I. The war, which lasted from 1914 to 1918, involved numerous countries and was characterized by trench warfare, unprecedented loss of life, and widespread destruction. The causes of this conflict were complex, stemming from militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary in June 1914 acted as the catalyst for the war, triggering a series of alliances that ultimately plunged Europe into a full-scale conflict. By 1918, the Central Powers, which included Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, faced military defeat. Economic turmoil and social unrest in Germany, coupled with the entry of the United States into the war in 1917, hastened the end of the conflict. The armistice of November 11, 1918, marked the formal cessation of hostilities, setting the stage for peace negotiations. In January 1919, leaders from the Allied powers convened in Paris for the peace conference. The key players included British Prime Minister David Lloyd George, French Premier Georges Clemenceau, and U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, all of whom had different visions for the post-war world. The conference faced the complex task of addressing issues such as territorial disputes, disarmament, reparations, and the establishment of new nations. Wilson, advocating for self-determination and the establishment of the League of Nations, proposed his 14 points as a foundation for peace. However, his vision often clashed with Clemenceau's desire for punitive measures against Germany and Lloyd George's more moderate approach. The treaty consisted of several main components, each addressing different aspects of post-war reconstruction and international relations. One of the treaty's most significant aspects was the redrawing of national boundaries. The map of Europe was drastically altered. In Germany, the treaty imposed severe restrictions on territorial claims. Alsace-Lorraine was returned to France, and parts of Prussia were given to the newly established Poland. Additionally, the Saar Basin was placed under international administration for 15 years. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was dismantled, leading to the creation of several independent countries, including Czechoslovakia and the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Yugoslavia. The Ottoman Empire was similarly fragmented, resulting in the establishment of new states in the Middle East and the creation of mandates under the control of Britain and France. The treaty also recognized various nation-states, including Finland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which gained independence from Russia. The treaty imposed strict limitations on Germany's military capabilities. The German army was restricted to 100,000 troops, and the country was prohibited from maintaining an air force or submarines. Furthermore, the treaty limited the size of the Navy and mandated the demilitarization of the Rhineland, a region bordering France. The issue of reparations was one of the most contentious aspects of the Treaty of Versailles. Germany was held responsible for the war and required to make reparations payments to the Allied nations. In 1921, the Reparations Commission set the total amount at 132 billion gold marks, a figure that Germany deemed excessively punitive and ultimately unpayable. The treaty also established the League of Nations, an international organization aimed at ensuring collective security and promoting diplomatic resolutions to conflicts. Woodrow Wilson's vision for the League was to create a forum where countries could resolve their differences without resorting to war. However, despite its noble intentions, the League faced numerous challenges, particularly with the absence of the United States. The German reaction to the treaty was one of shock and outrage. The German public was largely unaware of the extent of their country's military losses and believed the terms of the treaty were unjust. The "stab in the back" myth emerged, suggesting that Germany had not been defeated on the battlefield, but had instead been betrayed by politicians and socialists, further fueling resentment towards the treaty. The alliance nations had mixed feelings regarding the peace settlement. While some viewed the treaty as a necessary measure to prevent future conflicts, others criticized its punitive nature. British Prime Minister Lloyd George faced backlash from those who felt the treaty was too harsh on Germany, while Clemenceau viewed the measures as necessary for France's future security. The treaty, instead of fostering a lasting peace, set the stage for future conflicts. The combination of economic hardship, political instability, and national humiliation contributed to the rise of extremist political movements in Germany. Most notably, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler. The reparations imposed on Germany exacerbated the country's economic struggles in the years following the war. Hyperinflation in the early 1920s led to widespread poverty and social unrest. The economic instability provided fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root, ultimately contributing to the rise of Hitler and the outbreak of World War II. The treaty's failure to establish a viable balance of power in Europe played a significant role in the rise of totalitarian regimes in the interwar period. The inability of the League of Nations to respond effectively to aggression, exemplified by the Italian invasion of Ethiopia and the Japanese invasion of Manchuria, demonstrated the organization's weaknesses. The Treaty of Versailles was a landmark agreement that shaped the course of 20th century history. Its provisions drew new boundaries, imposed military restrictions, and established the League of Nations in an effort to create a lasting peace. However, the punitive measures and failure to address the underlying issues of nationalism and economic stability sowed the seeds of future conflict. The 1920s and 1930s marked a pivotal period in global history, characterized by dramatic political, economic, and social upheaval that ultimately set the stage for the rise of totalitarian regimes across Europe and beyond. Totalitarianism, defined by its absolute control over public and private life, emerged as an antidote to the tumultuous conditions following World War I, a conflict that left much of Europe fractured and disillusioned. The devastation of war, rampant economic instability, and the fear of communism created fertile ground for authoritarian leaders to rise and assert their dominance by promising stability, national rejuvenation, and an unequivocal response to the challenges of a rapidly changing world. One of the most notable figures to rise during this period was Benito Mussolini in Italy. With the establishment of the Fascist Party in 1921, Mussolini capitalized on this sense of crisis. He promised to resurrect the glories of the Roman Empire, while projecting himself as a man who could bring back stability. Fascism, as ideologically outlined by Mussolini, emphasized the supremacy of the state, the primacy of nationalist sentiment, and revolutionary zeal against perceived internal enemies like communists and socialists. By 1922, Mussolini had utilized intimidation, propaganda, and political maneuvering to become the Prime Minister of Italy, establishing the first formal totalitarian regime. Mussolini's regime was characterized by a strong central authority that sought control over every aspect of public life. Censorship became rampant as the state sought to suppress dissent and shape public perception. The secret police, or AVRA, were employed to monitor and eliminate any opposition. Mussolini's vision extended beyond mere political control. He envisioned a society shaped by his ideals and committed to the supremacy of the Italian state. This necessitated a wide-reaching campaign to instill fascist values across all domains, including education, art, and culture, creating a unified national identity that was inextricably linked to the state's ideology. In Germany, the backdrop was even more complex, with the Weimar Republic struggling to gain legitimacy amid widespread economic disarray and societal tensions. Hyperinflation devastated the economy in the early 1920s, and by the decade's end, the Great Depression struck, plunging Germany into further turmoil. Amid this chaos, Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party, found fertile ground for their extremist ideology. Originally a fringe movement, the Nazis capitalized on widespread dissatisfaction, anti-Semitic sentiment, and fears of communism to stoke nationalist fervor and anti-establishment sentiments. Hitler's ascent to power was incremental but systematic. His use of charismatic oratory, combined with a relentless propaganda machine, allowed him to array a vision of revived Germany that resonated with millions. In 1933, following a series of political machinations and brutal acts of intimidation, Hitler was appointed Chancellor. What followed was a rapid dismantlement of democratic institutions, as the Nazis moved swiftly to eliminate any form of dissent or opposition. The Reichstag fire in February 1933 provided a convenient pretext for the passing of the Reichstag Fire Decree, which curtailed civil liberties and enabled mass arrests of political opponents. The Nazi regime's totalitarian nature became evident in its total domination over society. The regime strove to create a singular, homogeneous German identity, which necessitated the systematic persecution of Jews, homosexuals, Romani people, and political dissidents. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 institutionalized racial discrimination, further enshrining the idea of Aryan supremacy in the legal framework of Nazi Germany, thus illustrating the regime's reliance on ideology to justify its actions. The militarization of society and the expansion of the SS and Gestapo allowed the government to maintain a grip on the populace, creating a climate of fear and compliance. Similar trends were observable in the Soviet Union, where Joseph Stalin engineered a totalitarian state under the guise of communism. Totalitarian regimes shared several key characteristics: the suppression of individual freedoms, the use of propaganda to control the narrative, and a relentless pursuit of ideology as a means to unify and mobilize the population. Education became a fundamental tool in spreading these ideologies, with both fascist and communist regimes manipulating curricula to instill loyalty and indoctrinate the younger generations. Artistic expression was monitored and coerced into state-approved forms, showcasing an aesthetic aligned with their rigid ideologies. The purging of culture deemed contrary to the state's values stripped societies of their diversity, creativity, and dissent, creating echo chambers where only the state's voice was permitted. In addition to the internal focus of these regimes, their totalitarian nature frequently manifested in aggressive foreign policies aimed at territorial expansion or the spread of their ideologies. Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in 1935 exemplified Mussolini's imperial ambitions rooted in fascist ideology, while Hitler's remilitarization of the Rhineland and later annexation of Austria and Czechoslovakia showcased the Nazi regime's expansionist vision. The rhetoric of national rejuvenation, historically rooted grievances, and the glorification of military might propelled these nations toward confrontations that would ultimately spiral into World War II. The interplay between the horrors of the Great Depression and the response of totalitarian regimes also provided a compelling insight into human behavior and governmental authority in crises. In times of desperation, populations frequently sought security over liberty, often trading democratic principles for the promise of stability and national pride. As the totalitarian regimes of Italy, Germany, and the Soviet Union solidified their control, the world watched with a mix of fascination and dread. The consolidation of power and aggressive militarism prompted responses from democratic nations, but the effectiveness of these countermeasures was often hampered by their own economic struggles and political divisions. The idea of collectivized conflict against totalitarianism was becoming increasingly murky, as some democratic leaders hesitated to confront rising fascist movements, hoping to avoid confrontation while appeasing them in a bid for peace. The expansion of aggression between 1931 and 1939 represents one of the most significant periods of interwar history that set the stage for the global conflict of World War II. The repercussions of World War I had left many nations grappling with political instability, economic strife, and unresolved territorial claims. This atmosphere created ripe conditions for aggressive nationalism and militaristic policies, particularly among the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. The onset of this volatile period can be traced back to Japan, which, in 1931, launched a full-scale invasion of Manchuria, an area in northeastern China rich in resources. The invasion was partly fueled by Japan's need for natural resources to support its growing industrial economy, as well as its imperial ambitions in Asia. By establishing the puppet state of Manchukuo, Japan aimed to assert its dominance in the region. The response from the international community was minimal. The League of Nations, created after World War I to ensure collective security, condemned Japan's actions, but ultimately took no effective measures to halt the aggression. This failure to respond decisively highlighted the League's weaknesses and emboldened other nations to pursue similar paths of expansion. As the situation in Europe deteriorated, the Spanish Civil War erupted in 1936, attracting international attention and involvement. This conflict became a battleground for competing ideologies: fascism versus communism. Hitler and Mussolini supported Francisco Franco's nationalist forces, while the Soviet Union backed the Republicans. The war served both as a testing ground for the military tactics that would later be employed in World War II, and as a clear indication of the escalating ideological struggles that would dominate the period. The Munich Agreement of 1938 illustrated the depths of the policy of appeasement. Hitler demanded the Sudetenland, a region of Czechoslovakia with a significant ethnic German population. Britain, France, and Italy engaged in negotiations with the German Führer without the inclusion of Czechoslovak representatives. The resulting accord allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland in exchange for promise of no further territorial expansion. This agreement was met with relief by many European leaders, who believed they had averted another war. However, they had underestimated Hitler's ambitions. Less than 6 months later, he occupied the remainder of Czechoslovakia, nullifying any credibility the Munich Agreement had held. The response to the aggression of these nations continued to be tepid, leading into 1939. In March of that year, Hitler further escalated tensions by demanding the return of Danzig and the Polish Corridor, territories that provided Poland with access to the Baltic Sea. In an effort to counterbalance German aggression, Britain and France began to solidify their alliances with Poland and other Eastern European nations, yet their efforts were perceived as too little, too late. The situation reached a critical point with the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in August 1939, a non-aggression treaty between Germany and the Soviet Union. This agreement secretly divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence and effectively ensured that Germany would not face a two-front war as it prepared to invade Poland. On September 1st, 1939, Germany launched a blitzkrieg against Poland, marking the official commencement of World War II. This invasion was characterized by a swift and brutal blitzkrieg strategy, which emphasized rapid movement and coordinated attacks from aircraft, tanks, and infantry. The German forces, well-equipped and strategically prepared, swiftly overwhelmed Polish defenses, leading to significant territory gains within days. The invasion of Poland was not just a pivotal moment in military history, but also a catalyst for international conflict. Britain and France, having pledged to defend Poland through mutual agreements, declared war on Germany just 2 days later, on September 3rd. This marked a profound shift in global dynamics, transitioning from the uneasy peace that followed World War I to a full-scale worldwide conflict. The resultant destruction and human suffering were profound, as Poland fell under occupation, its cities devastated, and its people subjected to violence and oppression. This invasion underscored the failure of diplomacy and peace agreements that had been enacted in the interwar period and highlighted the aggressive expansionism of totalitarian regimes. Thus began a dark chapter in history, replete with conflict, moral dilemmas, and the eventual call for a new world order in the face of unprecedented adversity. The fall of France in 1940 was a pivotal movement in World War II that dramatically altered the balance of power in Europe. Following the swift invasion by Nazi Germany in May, the French military was unprepared for the innovative tactics employed by the Wehrmacht, particularly the use of blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This strategy focused on rapid movements of infantry, tanks, and air support that overwhelmed French defenses, leading to a collapse of traditional military responses. By June, German forces had captured Paris, and the French government sought an armistice. The fall was not merely a military defeat. It also shattered the French national psyche and undermined confidence in the Republic. The rapid occupation gave birth to the Vichy regime, which collaborated with Nazi Germany and embodied a broader European struggle against fascism. Consequently, the fall had far-reaching implications. It opened the door for German dominance in Western Europe and set the stage for further military campaigns. Resistance movements began to form, fueling hopes for liberation, while the fall of France ultimately became a symbol of both defeat and resilience in the face of tyranny. This period marked a crucial turning point in the trajectory of the war that would shape the future of Europe. The Battle of Britain, fought between July and October 1940, marked a pivotal moment in World War II, as it represented the first significant military campaign fought entirely in the air. Following the fall of France, Britain stood alone against Nazi Germany, which sought to achieve air superiority in preparation for an invasion. The Luftwaffe, under the command of Hermann Göring, aimed to destroy the Royal Air Force and demoralize the British populace through relentless bombing. The RAF, despite being outnumbered, employed innovative tactics and was bolstered by the advanced radar technology that provided crucial early warning of incoming attacks. Key figures such as Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding orchestrated a defense strategy that capitalized on the strengths of Spitfire and Hurricane fighters. Pilots from various nations, including Canada, Poland, and New Zealand, joined their British counterparts to form a diverse and dedicated fighting force. The Luftwaffe initially targeted airfields and military installations, but eventually shifted its focus to bombing London and other major cities in a campaign known as the Blitz. This change galvanized British morale, rallying the populace in defiance of adversity. Against the odds, the RAF claimed victory, inflicting significant losses on German aircraft and pilots. Ultimately, the Battle of Britain proved to be a crucial turning point, halting Hitler's plans for invasion and marking the first time in the war that the Axis powers faced a significant defeat. The battle underscored the importance of air power and set the stage for future Allied offensives in Europe. Operation Barbarossa, launched on June 22, 1941, was Nazi Germany's ambitious plan to invade the Soviet Union, marking a pivotal moment in World War II. This vast military campaign aimed to decimate the Red Army and seize key territories, fundamentally altering the course of the war. Adolf Hitler believed that a swift victory would provide the Lebensraum, or living space, the German people needed, as well as access to valuable resources. The operation involved massive troop deployments, with approximately 3 million soldiers, 600,000 vehicles, and 750,000 horses crossing a front stretching over 1,800 miles. The German Wehrmacht intended to achieve a quick and decisive victory, employing blitzkrieg tactics that emphasize speed and surprise. Initial stages of the invasion were devastating for the Soviet forces, as they faced severe casualties and disarray. Key cities, such as Smolensk and Kiev, fell to the Germans, highlighting their military prowess. However, the campaign ultimately faltered due to several factors. The vastness of the Soviet territory, coupled with the harsh Russian winter, significantly impeded German supply lines and troop morale. The Red Army, previously underestimated, regrouped and launched counteroffensives, most notably during the Battle of Moscow in late 1941. Operation Barbarossa's failure marked a turning point as the German advance stalled and the conflict transitioned from a swift campaign of conquest to a protracted and brutal war of attrition. The ramifications of this operation would resonate throughout the war, setting the stage for the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. The entry of the United States into World War II in 1941 marked a pivotal turning point in the conflict that shaped the future of global power dynamics. Prior to this, the U.S. maintained a position of neutrality, influenced by isolationist sentiments among its populace and the ravaging effects of the Great Depression. However, as the war spread across Europe and Asia, and with the Axis powers gaining ground, the necessity for American involvement became increasingly apparent. The catalyst for U.S. entry into the war was the unexpected attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, by Japanese forces. This military strike resulted in significant loss of life and destruction of naval assets, shocking the American public and galvanizing support for entering the war. In response to the attack, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress, famously dubbing December 7th as a date which will live in infamy. His impassioned speech led to an almost unanimous declaration of war against Japan on December 8, 1941. In the following days, Germany and Italy, allies of Japan, declared war on the United States, prompting America to mobilize its military and economic resources on an unprecedented scale. Factories converted to war production, and millions of Americans enlisted or were drafted into military service. This commitment not only transformed the U.S. into a formidable military, but also set the stage for extensive involvement in both the European and Pacific theaters of war, ultimately contributing to the downfall of the Axis powers and reshaping international relations for decades to come. The years 1942 and 1943 marked crucial turning points in World War II, defining the trajectory of the conflict and establishing conditions that would ultimately lead to the defeat of the Axis powers. By this stage of the war, the tide was beginning to shift as Allies gained momentum in both the European and Pacific theaters. Key battles and strategic decisions made during these 2 years would alter the course of the war and shaped the future of nations involved. In the Pacific, the Battle of Midway, fought from June 4th to June 7th, 1942, represented a decisive turning point against the Japanese Imperial Navy. Prior to Midway, Japan was enjoying a series of victories, having expanded its territory through rapid offensives across the Pacific. However, the United States, having broken Japanese codes, was able to anticipate the attack on Midway Island. American forces, utilizing aircraft carriers as mobile air bases, launched devastating counterattacks that resulted in the sinking of 4 Japanese aircraft carriers. This battle not only marked a shift in naval power, but also bolstered American morale and demonstrated the importance of intelligence and resourcefulness in warfare. Simultaneously, in the European theater, the Battle of Stalingrad, which began in August 1942 and concluded in February 1943, was another monumental event that drastically altered the war's dynamics. The German army had advanced deep into Soviet territory, but the brutal and protracted nature of the battle, coupled with fierce Soviet resistance, turned the tide against Adolf Hitler's forces. By encircling and ultimately capturing the German Sixth Army, the Soviets inflicted a devastating blow to German morale and capability. Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resilience and showcased the ability of the Red Army to mount a successful defense and subsequent counteroffensive, marking the beginning of a sustained Soviet advance westward toward Europe. Meanwhile, in North Africa, the Allies were contending with the Axis forces led by General Erwin Rommel. The Second Battle of El Alamein, which took place between October and November 1942, signified a turning point in the North African campaign. British General Bernard Montgomery's troops, supported by Commonwealth forces, launched a decisive offensive that drove the Axis powers out of Egypt. This victory not only established Allied control over North Africa, but also set the stage for the subsequent invasion of Italy in 1943. The successes in North Africa shifted the focus of Allied operations and demonstrated the increasing coordination among Allied forces. The Allied invasion of Sicily in July 1943 and the subsequent Italian campaign further exemplified the impact of these turning points. The taking of Sicily was a critical step in undermining Axis power in southern Europe, leading to the overthrow of Mussolini and Italy's eventual capitulation. The invasion indicated increased cooperation among the Allies, particularly between British and American forces, in executing a strategy that would apply pressure on Axis forces from multiple fronts. Overall, the years 1942 and 1943 were pivotal in shifting the balance of power during World War II. The victories at Midway and Stalingrad decimated enemy forces while invigorating Allied resolve. Additionally, successes in North Africa and the Italian front opened new avenues for Allied assaults in Europe. These turning points fused into a broader strategic shift that solidified the Allies' eventual path to victory, transforming World War II into a protracted struggle that would ultimately alter the political map of the post-war world. As the Axis powers faced mounting challenges on multiple fronts, the Allies began to mobilize for a concerted push towards final victory. The D-Day invasion, known as Operation Overlord, marked a pivotal moment in World War II, forever altering the trajectory of the conflict and the fate of Europe. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched one of the most ambitious amphibious assaults in military history, landing on the beaches of Normandy, France. This meticulously planned operation involved the combined efforts of troops from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and other Allied nations, collectively numbering over 156,000 soldiers. The operation's success would provide a crucial foothold in continental Europe, from which the Allies could launch further operations against Nazi Germany. Planning for D-Day began long before the actual assault. It involved complex logistics, comprehensive reconnaissance, and the coordination of land, air, and naval forces. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force, played a central role in orchestrating the invasion. He and his staff meticulously studied weather patterns, tides, and moon phases to choose the optimal landing date. The Allied forces faced the daunting task of breaching the formidable Atlantic Wall, an extensive series of fortifications built by the Germans along the French coastline in anticipation of an Allied invasion. The early hours of June 6th saw an extensive aerial and naval bombardment aimed at softening German defenses. Additionally, nearly 24,000 paratroopers were dropped behind enemy lines in the pre-dawn hours, tasked with securing key positions and disrupting German communications. The primary land assault commenced shortly after dawn, as landing craft braved rough seas to reach 5 designated beaches, codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Each beach presented unique challenges. For instance, Omaha Beach became notorious for its fierce German resistance and high casualty rates, as American troops faced obstacles like machine gun fire and heavily fortified positions. Despite the chaos and losses on Omaha Beach, the determination of Allied troops was unwavering. Over the course of the day, the beachhead was gradually secured, albeit at a heavy cost. By the end of D-Day, approximately 4,400 Allied soldiers had lost their lives, with thousands more wounded. Nevertheless, the Allies managed to establish a critical foothold in Normandy, which would serve as a launch pad for further operations to liberate Western Europe from Nazi occupation. The success of the D-Day invasion hinged not only on military strategy, but also on deception and misinformation. The Allies implemented a vast disinformation campaign known as Operation Fortitude to mislead the Germans about the location and timing of the invasion. This successful ruse contributed to the relatively lighter German response at the actual landing sites, particularly at the lesser-known beaches. In the weeks that followed, Allied forces pushed inland from the beaches, facing fierce German resistance, but gradually liberating French towns and cities. The impact of the D-Day invasion extended far beyond the immediate military gains. It revitalized the morale of the Allied nations, showcased the power of collaboration among the Allies, and signified a turning tide in the war against fascism. D-Day set in motion a series of events that would eventually lead to the liberation of Paris and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany in May 1945. D-Day remains an enduring symbol of courage, sacrifice, and the importance of cooperation in achieving shared goals. The valor displayed by the soldiers on that fateful day serves as a testament to their commitment to freedom and the global struggle against tyranny. As the years pass, the lessons of D-Day continue to resonate, reminding us of the sacrifices made in pursuit of a more just and peaceful world. The fall of the Axis powers in the later years of World War II marked a significant turning point in global history, culminating in the collapse of totalitarian regimes and the eventual emergence of Allied victory. By 1944, the tide of the war had begun to turn against the Axis, which primarily included Germany, Italy, and Japan. The Allies were determined to dislodge the Axis forces from fronts around the world, with momentum shifting in their favor due to key military successes, strategic planning, and the burgeoning industrial capacity of the United States. In Europe, the D-Day invasion of June 1944 was a watershed moment that set in motion the liberation of occupied countries. The successful landing of Allied forces on the beaches of Normandy opened a new front against the Germans and served as a catalyst for the Allied push into France. Following D-Day, the Allies quickly advanced, liberating Paris in August 1944 and continuing their assault across the Rhine. Simultaneously, the Soviet Union was making significant strides on the Eastern Front, pushing the Germans back following victories at Stalingrad and Kursk. The German military was stretched thin, fighting on multiple fronts with dwindling resources as Allied forces gained ground. As the Allies advanced in Western Europe, Italy's situation became increasingly precarious. Mussolini's regime fell in July of 1943, and after Italy's surrender, German forces occupied much of the country, leading to a fierce and protracted campaign to liberate it. By early 1945, Allied forces were confidently pushing northward through Italy, systematically dismantling German strongholds with greater ease as disarray among the enemy became apparent. As the Allies captured Rome in 1944 and moved towards the Alps, the Axis powers found their hold on Italy all but gone. By the spring of 1945, the downfall of Nazi Germany was imminent. The Soviets had encircled Berlin and launched their final assault on the capital in April. Adolf Hitler, realizing defeat was inevitable, retreated to his bunker where he remained until his suicide on April 30th, 1945. The subsequent German surrender on May 7th marked the official end of the war in Europe, a moment celebrated across the globe as Victory in Europe Day. The rapid dissolution of the German military apparatus illustrated the unraveling of the Axis coalition as the once formidable alliance crumbled under the combined pressure of concentrated Allied military might and internal strife. In the Pacific theater, the situation for Japan was equally dire. Allied forces, employing a strategy of island hopping, gradually captured key islands, pushing towards the Japanese home islands. The battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa, fought between February and June 1945, were particularly significant, resulting in heavy casualties, but allowing Allied forces to gain vital positions for an eventual invasion of Japan. Meanwhile, Japan's supply lines were severely disrupted, and by mid-1945, the country faced devastating air raids that crippled its infrastructure. The ascendant Allied forces were backed by staggering industrial production, particularly from the United States, which had transformed into a global manufacturing powerhouse during the war. While the Axis was gradually unable to replenish their military resources, the Allies benefited from technology and manpower, determining the stigma of attrition in favor of adaptive strategies. In August 1945, the use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to surrender, effectively ending World War II. The fall of the Axis powers thus not only concluded one of the darkest chapters in human history, but also led to a reorganization of global power dynamics, setting the stage for the Cold War and the geopolitical landscape of the latter 20th century. The defeat of the Axis represented not only the collapse of dictatorial regimes, but also the triumph of collective democratic values, underscoring a pivotal shift toward international cooperation in the aftermath of the war. The aftermath of World War II marked a profound transformation in global politics, society, and economics, influenced by the devastating consequences of the war that claimed the lives of over 70 million people and left many nations in ruins. Faced with unprecedented destruction and the breakdown of international order, the international community recognized the need for a concerted effort to prevent future conflicts of such magnitude. This recognition ultimately led to the formation of the United Nations, UN, in 1945, a pivotal institution tasked with promoting peace, security, and cooperation among nations. The end of World War II in 1945 left deep scars across Europe and Asia as cities lay in ruins and economies were shattered. The war had resulted in a geographic reconfiguration of power, with the United States and the Soviet Union emerging as superpowers, while many European nations grappled with the aftermath of occupation and devastation. The war had also exposed systematic failures in international relations, highlighting the inadequacies of the League of Nations, which had been established after World War I to maintain peace. Its inability to prevent aggression and resolve disputes demonstrated that a stronger, more effective institution was needed. In the immediate post-war period, the overwhelming desire for peace and stability prompted extensive debates about the reorganization of international relations. Political leaders and diplomats recognized the need for a framework that could address the causes of conflict and promote cooperation among nations. This was particularly important in a world where colonialism was beginning to wane and newly independent nations were seeking a voice in international affairs. The devastation of war had redefined both the concept of national sovereignty and the interdependence of global communities, making it clear that national interests could no longer be pursued in isolation. The formation of the United Nations was a response to these challenges. It was initiated in San Francisco during the United Nations Conference on International Organization, which began on April 25, 1945. Delegates from 50 nations convened to draft the United Nations Charter, a document outlining the organization's principles, purposes, and structure. The Charter emphasized the importance of safeguarding human rights, promoting social progress, and fostering international cooperation. By October 24, 1945, the UN was officially established, with its headquarters in New York City, symbolizing a commitment to collective security and diplomacy. Key to understanding the formation of the United Nations was the desire to prevent the atrocities that had occurred during World War II from reoccurring. The UN aimed to address not only political and military disputes, but also the underlying social and economic issues that often fuel conflict. The organization adopted an inclusive approach, recognizing that peace was intertwined with justice, equality, and development. This perspective marked a significant evolution in international relations, broadening the scope of diplomatic engagement beyond the mere state-to-state interactions. The UN structure was designed to reflect the diversity of its member states and facilitate cooperation. The General Assembly, composed of all member states, provides a forum for discussion and decision-making on a range of issues, including security, development, and human rights. However, the Security Council, which held greater power and responsibility for maintaining international peace, was comprised of 5 permanent members: the United States, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, France, and China, armed with veto powers. This arrangement underscored the geopolitical realities of the post-war world and has been the subject of ongoing debate regarding its fairness and effectiveness. From its inception, the UN faced significant challenges in fulfilling its mission. The onset of the Cold War, characterized by ideological rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, complicated the organization's ability to act decisively. Numerous conflicts emerged around the globe, from the Korean War to the decolonization struggles in Africa and Asia. Despite these challenges, the UN has played a crucial role in facilitating dialogue, mediating conflicts, and providing humanitarian assistance. A pivotal aspect of the UN's mission has been the promotion and protection of human rights. The atrocities of World War II revealed the depths of human cruelty and injustice, leading to a renewed commitment to uphold fundamental freedoms and dignity for all individuals. In 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted, articulating a set of rights and freedoms that all people are entitled to, regardless of nationality or background. This landmark document has served as a foundational framework for human rights efforts globally, inspiring movements and policies aimed at advancing social justice. As the UN evolved, it expanded its focus beyond conflict resolution to address pressing global issues such as poverty, health, education, and sustainable development. Initiatives such as the Sustainable Development Goals, adopted in 2015, underscored the organization's commitment to fostering equitable progress for all nations while addressing environmental challenges. These efforts reflect a growing recognition that addressing the root causes of conflict requires a holistic approach that integrates economic development, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. The UN's peacekeeping missions became emblematic of its efforts to maintain international peace and security. These missions, often deployed in post-conflict regions, aimed to stabilize societies, protect civilians, and create conditions for sustainable peace. However, the effectiveness and complexity of peacekeeping operations have sparked debates about their limitations, including issues related to funding, mandate enforcement, and the need for robust political frameworks to support peace-building efforts. Criticism of the UN's effectiveness has persisted throughout its history, fueled by instances where the organization struggled to prevent conflicts or adequately respond to humanitarian crises. The Rwandan genocide in 1994 and the Srebrenica massacre in 1995 exemplified failures that raised questions about the UN's capacity to fulfill its mandate. These tragedies prompted reflections on the need for reform, with the organization to enhance its ability to respond to emerging challenges in a rapidly changing world. In recent years, the UN has faced a new set of challenges presented by globalization, technological advancements, and shifting geopolitical landscapes. Issues such as terrorism, climate change, and pandemics have underscored the interconnectedness of global challenges that no single nation can address alone. In response, the UN has increasingly sought to engage with a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including civil society, the private sector, and grassroots organizations to mobilize collective action. Despite its challenges and criticisms, the United Nations remains an essential institution for fostering dialogue, promoting development, and upholding human rights. It has facilitated more than 170 peace agreements, conducted numerous humanitarian missions, and played a pivotal role in shaping international norms and standards. The legacies of World War II, including the collective scars and lessons learned, continue to guide the UN's work as it seeks to adapt to the complexities of the 21st century. In conclusion, the aftermath of World War II catalyzed the formation of the United Nations, driven by a desire for peace, security, and cooperation in a fractured world. While the UN has faced significant challenges, it has remained central to international efforts to address global issues and promote collective well-being. As the world continues to confront new threats and evolving dynamics, the UN's role in fostering cooperation, dialogue, and sustainable development holds paramount significance for future generations, reminding us of the enduring need for collaboration in the pursuit of a more peaceful world. It is vital to reflect on the myriad of ways in which the monumental conflict of World War II reshaped the trajectory of history. At the heart of World War II's narrative lies the rise of totalitarian regimes, particularly in Germany, Italy, and Japan. The path to power of Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, and militaristic factions in Japan, which were fueled by nationalist fervor and economic discontent. The aftermath of World War I, compounded by the Great Depression, created fertile ground for these authoritarian figures who promised revival and glory. Their ascendance serves as a sobering reminder of how fragile democracies can be in times of crisis, urging societies to remain vigilant against the allure of extremism. An exploration of the aggressive expansionist policies adopted by these regimes revealed how unchecked ambitions can lead to widespread devastation. Hitler's invasion of Poland in 1939, a calculated gamble that ignited the war, showcased not only the dangers of appeasement, but also the failure of global institutions to maintain peace. The subsequent domino effect, which pulled nations into the vortex of conflict, emphasized the interconnectedness of international relations and the complex web of alliances that shaped the war's progress. This narrative prompts a crucial reflection on the importance of diplomacy and the necessity for proactive measures in avoiding similar catastrophes in the future. The Battle of Stalingrad, a harrowing turning point on the Eastern Front, illustrated both the brutal realities of warfare and the resilience of the Soviet people. Its aftermath not only marked the decline of Nazi Germany's military fortunes, but also set in motion the Soviet Union's rise as a superpower. Similarly, the D-Day invasion, a monumental undertaking that exemplified Allied cooperation, highlighted the strategic complexities of multinational military efforts and underscored the critical importance of logistics, intelligence, and sacrifice in achieving victory. The systematic extermination of 6 million Jews alongside millions of others deemed undesirable serves as a chilling testament to humanity's capacity for cruelty. This point serves as an imperative reminder of the importance of remembrance and education in fostering a more compassionate and just society, ensuring that the lessons of history are not forgotten. From the development of the tank and aircraft to the monumental achievement of the nuclear Manhattan Project, the race for technological superiority became a critical component of military strategy. This evolving landscape appeals to modern audiences as it raises questions about the ethics of scientific research in the context of warfare. Furthermore, it invites introspection on how technological advancements must be paired with moral considerations to prevent future conflicts. Women's contributions to the war effort, from factories to battlefield support roles, signified a revolutionary shift in gender dynamics, laying the groundwork for future movements for equality. This transformation illustrates how times of turmoil can catalyze significant social change and alter perceptions of capability and roles within society, a theme that resonates strongly in contemporary discussions around gender and work. The conclusion of the war did not herald a return to the status quo, but instead accelerated the emergence of new global dynamics. The establishment of the United Nations was a direct response to the failings that precipitated the conflict, symbolizing a collective commitment to preventing such a catastrophe in the future. The unveiling of the Cold War era, underscored by the ideologically charged rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, provides a lens through which to examine post-war politics and power realignments. This pivotal moment in history serves as a reminder of how the outcomes of one conflict can set the stage for future tensions and rivalries. Moreover, the economic ramifications of the war were profound. The Marshall Plan illustrated the necessity of rebuilding war-torn nations to ensure stability and prevent the rise of extremist ideologies, emphasizing the understanding that economic hardship can lead to conflict. The infusion of aid into Europe not only fostered recovery, but also paved the way for future alliances such as the European Union, showcasing the long-term vision that emerged from the ashes of war. Many nations in Asia and Africa, inspired by the principles of self-determination articulated during the conflict, began to challenge imperialist forces. The subsequent struggles for independence marked a significant shift in global power structures and underscored the interconnectedness of colonial histories with the broader narrative of World War II. World War II was not merely a series of battles fought on distant shores, but a monumental event that defined the 20th century. Its echoes are felt in our political landscapes, our social movements, and our ethical conversations about the future. As we conclude, we are reminded that the lessons from World War II must remain in our consciousness, informing our actions and decisions as we navigate the complexities of an increasingly interconnected world. The memory of sacrifice, resilience, and the unyielding human spirit in the face of adversity should galvanize us to pursue a future rooted in peace, collaboration, and mutual respect.